You are listening to the Irvin V. Griffin Jr. podcast here on Spreaker.com. Okay, this is Irvin V. Griffin Jr. Welcome to another quick podcast I decided to make on a subject that's actually been bugging me for the last couple of years. Now, before I get into this, those of you of a religious, especially black folks, especially if you're a Christian, of a very strong, deeply religious belief, you might want to turn this podcast off or go elsewhere on this one. Because I'm about to go in a little bit on this. Now, don't get me wrong. The concept of forgiveness is a beautiful concept. It's a wonderful concept. But just like respect, it should be earned. Case of point over the last couple of years. Dylan Roof, the white boy that went up into the black church when people was just having worship and praise and shot up all those people, killed many of them. That might be on death row. I think he is on death row. If he's not, they're considering death penalty for him. When they came for his arraignment, the relatives of this family, the people that was killed, almost immediately forgave this guy. Recent case in point, although that Castile guy in Minnesota that was I'll go ahead and say it, murdered by that dude, by that cop up there in Falcon Heights, Minnesota. But I think the opposite has happened. I'm not sure about the family, but I think Mrs. Castile, the mother of this young man, has pretty much said she does not forgive the cop, which is a total reversal from what people have been used to seeing from black folks when their loved ones are killed. And I often view there's a couple of things to it. First of all, like I said, the forgiveness concept is a beautiful concept, and I do think it releases stress. And I've had people tell me, say, well, it isn't really for the other person. It's really for you to release stress. But here's the thing. Number one, I think at times we're almost programmed, and when I say we, I'm talking about black people specifically. We're almost programmed to instantly forgive when we've been done egregiously wrong. Egregiously wrong. Case in point, for those that want to throw that up and say, oh, I'm wrong for thinking this. How many of you are telling Fred Goldman to forgive O.J. Simpson? Exactly. I'll wait. And honestly, even though I have my opinions, I personally think he knows who's involved, but I think he was too dumb to do it. Talking about O.J. But let's say for argument's sake, O.J. did kill Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson. I'm not going to fault the Browns and the Goldmans for not forgiving O.J. In fact, I had this one, I won't say her name, but this one white woman I work with. She, for a long time before she got the courage to finally stand up for herself and leave, was in an abusive marriage. The abusive husband is no longer living. I think she said he was deceased. And people tell her all the time about how she should forgive. And she was like, why? Why should I forgive him? Was these same people that's telling me to forgive, was they telling him to stop beating on me when I finally had to stand up for myself and my children and get out of there? No. She was like, as a matter of fact, I not only not forgive, I'm glad he's dead. And she meant it. And to be honest, I can't fault her for feeling that way. I mean, the forgiveness thing I said it should be earned. I also think it should be the person that was wrong. It should be on their terms and their time. Or when God tells them it's time. It shouldn't be instant. That's why I think, and I think Tareen Rain made this point, and it's a plausible point. I think some of these quote unquote forgiveness speeches made publicly, I think it's a hustle. I think it's a hustle to try to excuse the wrongdoing of these police officers and other people. And it's always when the black person or the black family is wrong. Yes, I'm being specific. Because you never see anyone try to make, let's say, the Goldmans or the Browns, or when white people are done wrong by anybody in crimes, no one tries to shame them into forgiving. And a lot of times I think the forgiveness thing, I think there might be a little bit of green exchanged. In other words, I think these so-called quote-unquote forgiveness press conferences and stuff, I believe sometimes they're paid off. I have no proof of this, of course. This is just conjecture on my part. But I don't know. It just feels forced at times. At least to me. It's almost like they were just told, now you're going to get up there and you're going to forgive. And to me, that's a child's forgiveness. You know how like when you've done wrong and your parents make you say sorry to somebody, even when you really don't want to, they make you say sorry? That's a child's forgiveness. I mean, I'm talking about grown people who actually have been done wrong. I mean, and it's only us. Now, some of it is just weakness and brainwashing we've been done by the dogma in Christianity. And don't get me wrong, Christianity, I was brought up in it. It can be a beautiful religion. However, I think it's been perverted to brainwash rather than uplift the spirit. And I think it's also made people weak. And now for those that say, oh, you wrong. Well, many of our U.S. soldiers are also Christian. And many people that do stand up for themselves that are non-black, they aren't shamed. They are not humiliated because they are not humiliated. And they go to church too. But when they've been done wrong, they're not embarrassed into forgiving. Why are we embarrassed into that? And furthermore, why do we even go along with it? A lot of it is because they're scared. They want to show white people, well, I ain't like them other niggers. A lot of it is psychological is what I'm getting at. And like I said, forgiveness is a very beautiful concept, but I think it should be done on the individual that was wrong's time. This forgiving right away, I don't know, it's just suspect to me. Now, if they're choosing to do it, well, that's on them. Me personally, I'm not going to lie to you. If that would have been my mother, if that would have been her husband, who I view very much like a father, if that would have been my dad, I don't know if I'd ever forgive. I ain't gonna lie. I don't know if I'd ever forgive. Or if I did, it would have to be on my own time. No way I could accept a payout to get in front of a camera and say I forgive, knowing deep down I want to choke that individual that took my loved one until I watch the breath leave his body. And you know the old Bible verse saying, thou shalt not lie. I would be, if I got up there and said, oh, I forgive them for killing my mom, I'd be telling the biggest lie ever. Because I would still want to see them at that point deceased. And like I said, forgiveness is a beautiful concept, but to me, much like respect, it has to be earned. You just don't give it. Because if you just hand it out here and there, that gives the other impression that the person that wronged you or the group that wronged you, that you're weak. That's the impression they give. I know they say, well, forgiveness shows strength and stuff. No. And I've come to learn, just little stuff I grew up with that I look back on. I'm like, why did I listen to that? Like, ignore it, it'll go away. Or you're showing your strength by not fighting back. That's a lie. Lie told by people that either want to keep you weak or people that really did love you, but they just didn't want to deal with nothing. You're setting yourself up, quite frankly, to get your behind kicked and get a footprint on your butt cheeks is what you're setting yourself up for. And for those that say, well, God says to forgive and be nonviolent. I'm like, no, it doesn't. Because even in the very Bible, there was people that put foot to behind. Prayer without works is empty. The very Bible that you try to shame me with even says that. There's nothing wrong with praying. Nothing wrong with forgiving. Because at some point, you do have to let go of that anger. At the same time, though, it should be on your time and when God tells you it's time. Not when man trying to shame you with that Bible says it's time. It's got to be when it is time for you to forgive. And that's really all I got to say on what I consider one of the biggest hustles against African American people in this struggle against injustice in America. And it's a hustle used by our own people against us too. It ain't just white folks. Our own people even use that hustle too. But I think it's one of the biggest hustles out there on us. And it's a hustle not talked about much. Anyway, you can download this at my Spreaker channel on the Irvin B. Griffin Jr. podcast. You can also find me on Twitter under the handle Griff Phoenix. And of course, YouTube, Irvin Griffin, aka Mr. Griffin. I'm out. You have a nice day, folks.